Okay, good morning. Thanks, Jeremy, for the opportunity to present and share our NSTIC pilot. And John, wherever you are, thank you for the excellent facility here and all the hospitality that you guys have provided. I'd like to start off by saying that I did bring another part of one of our team members here, Shauna Russell. And Shauna, maybe you could just raise your hand. Those of you that haven't met Shauna yet, Shauna has a tremendous background in the DoD as a lawyer in DoD, many years there, and has been involved with a lot of the creation of the PKI infrastructure and a lot of the legal structure associated with that environment. So we've brought her on here really to focus on the legal and the privacy aspects of our pilot. So let me take a couple minutes and talk to you about TSCP. What is it? You may not know. We're a 501c6 entity, corporation, and we've actually been around for about 10 years working on secure collaboration. And TSCP is Transglobal Secure Collaboration Program. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. Transglobal Secure Collaboration Program. And it was really founded by a number of aerospace and defense contractors who all compete against each other but have a common goal, which is to be able to securely collaborate with each other and with the government, either U.S. or foreign customers. So in the process of building a Joint Strike Fighter, sending CAD drawings, sending emails, sending design specifications back and forth, doing that over the internet and doing that securely was a major challenge. So really the premise was let's take what the federal government has in place with their level of assurance for infrastructure, PKI-based infrastructure, replicate that in the defense contractors, so the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings, the Raytheons, the BAEs, all spent on the order, probably over the last 10 years, about $500 million implementing a PKI-based identity management systems in place and issued those credentials to their employees. So it's a very similar environment to the CAC environment in the U.S. federal government. So we have governments that are members of TSCP. I think we have 5 different governments, NATO. We have a number of A&D companies, 6 founding members. And then what we pretty quickly realized, trying to tackle some of these intractable secure collaboration problems, we found that being able to engage the technology providers, the Microsofts, the Computer Associates, some of the niche players in the identity management space, was a very important element. We needed to get them involved early in the discussions so we could start to influence the next generation or the next iteration of their product set. So over the past 10 years, a number of those, as you can see here in the diagram, have joined TSCP. So what do we really do? We have working groups, we have committees, we have projects, and we really focus on specification development. We have a reference lab where we allow technology providers to bring their products in and companies to be able to test and provide demonstration facilities to really, a lot of our job is just explaining to management, the budget holders, what the heck do we do? Well, why is identity management important? So having a technology demonstrator environment's been very helpful, both for the technology providers to show their wares and for the technology and for the aerospace and defense members and the government agencies that are members to be able to show what we really do here. We do work on trust framework types of governance, and we also have a federated hub, and we're standing up a bridge service to facilitate that. So what is our pilot? Our premise going in was we sort of looked at the current state, which Alex kind of talked about at the beginning of his pilot. We used a John Q. Public in our proposal, and the situation out there on the internet today, lots of different devices people come in to try to authenticate into or through to do the authentication into the relying party, and many different types of credentials, which we all know that just results in this, horrible mass of hundreds of online accounts. Lots of different cost elements along the way for the relying parties, for the consumers, and for the folks in the middle. So federated identity, not a new concept, but relatively new relative to adoption out in industry. Our vision here is the devices are going to be what they're going to be, but instead of having a multitude of credentials, a minimal set of credentials, with some type of a set of magic boxes in the middle, a cloud exchange, an attribute exchange, whatever that provider is in the middle, that would provide access then to the relying parties so we can authenticate and or authorize as needed. So a much more simpler, easier environment for the user and a much more cost-effective environment for the relying parties. So specifically in our grant, we took a look at kind of the state of where trust frameworks are today, some of the general issues involved, and we're going to create a thing called the TFDG, which is the Trust Framework Development Guidance. So think of it as sort of the rules of the road that all trust frameworks need to have. As John talked about earlier, plethora of trust frameworks out there in industry, communities of interest, and the idea of having one global, all-reaching trust framework is for a number of reasons something that probably won't happen, and probably for good reasons shouldn't happen. So the notion of having a trust framework development guidance, if you want to create a new trust framework or you have an existing one and you want to be able to interoperate with another community of interest, having a common set of elements would be really important. For those of you that have heard Tom Smedinghoff speak, Tom helped us considerably with our proposal as one of the partners on our proposal. One of the limitations right now to adoption, especially in the relying party space, is the non-existence of a legal framework or law, physical law out there, and liability. Discussions happen, and if there are problems or thinking through problems as business managers make decisions whether they want to implement or adopt the types of things that we're talking about in this room, once they engage the lawyers and once they engage their legal counsel, the risk associated with adopting a lot of these technologies, because there's no basis in common law, is just too high. So it's a pretty big barrier out there. So one of the things we're going to focus on and have started to focus on is that aspect. We've been successful in the past creating geometric articles, which is a good place to start as kind of a seed or a feeder into bodies that would create law, either local, state, or federal bodies. One of the documents that we created a few years ago around federated identities actually was published in the Sandra Day O'Connor Law Journal and has resulted in 3 bills being created, one of which was recently passed in the state of Virginia around federated operators, another around electronic notaries. So it's a proven path, and it's one we feel we'll be able to add value with our pilot. So our pilot effectively is to generate this trust framework development guidance. We're going to use an existing production environment that we have with the aerospace and defense contractors interacting with the federal government. We're going to engage, as I'm going to show you in a minute, the financial industry, and which also has a proven environment out there. We're going to create the development guidance and then go through a series of iterations with proof of concepts, pilots, and then hopefully into production for the relying parties. We use the feedback out of the proof of concepts and the feedbacks out of the pilots and other sources of feedback to improve the iterations as we walk through the 2 years. So as Jeremy mentioned earlier, there are a number of different approaches that we can take here to develop sort of this identity ecosystem. Ours is really to build on a production environment, which is this aerospace and defense environment that's spent, as I mentioned before, about $500 million, which is really the top swim lane there. I mean, we have thousands, possibly millions of users engaging in a working trust framework with a working liability model with level 4 credentials. We're going to expand that, bringing in Fidelity and Chicago Mercantile as additional relying parties, extend the privacy elements, or not extend, build in the privacy elements of NSTIC, extend our liability model that we currently have working to come up with an acceptable liability model, tackle some of the issues like permissible use, which is something we've already been talking with folks. You know, it seems like a really good idea if you're a Lockheed Martin or a Boeing or a DMDC, a federal agency, to just allow those credentials that you've spent a fair amount of money issuing along with the infrastructure, but there's issues around liability, around privacy that we really have to tackle for permissible use. So those are some of the early things that we've been focusing on. And then extending, bridging that success, you know, into the other trust frameworks. So our pilot use cases are really 3, but we're doing a PIV-PIV-I, sort of a level 4 level of assurance series, and then a non-PKI, level 2, level 3 level of assurance. So the first one is and there are really 3 different personas. One is a business persona, so you're an employee that has issued you a credential, and you are acting as a benefits administrator, for example, to a financial institution like Fidelity Investments, and you need to go in and take some action on behalf of an employee or to make a change to the benefits plan. So it's permissible use because it's on behalf of the company, but it is taking the credential sort of outside of the realm of where it was initially issued. So understanding the liability associated with using that federated identity and then tackling some of the usability and the privacy issues around that will be the focus of that use case. The second is also in a business persona, but it's sort of in that gray area of permissible use. And this is one where a good example would be a supply chain, which is the one we wrote up in our proposal, where you have a series of suppliers that are providing parts input or design diagrams or part status into a manufacturing system, for example, into Boeing or Lockheed Martin, who's performing on a contract, for example, and they need to update it, right? So the authentication that's needed there. So we want to use level 4 PKI for that, but there may be some questions around permissible use because it may not be, you know, quite within the guidelines that each of the companies has for permissible use of their issued credentials. So that's the second use case, and then the third is really the citizen, right? So that's you're at home. You're done work and you want to go in and you want to check your 401k balance or you want to check your bank account balance. So that use case is using a credential that's been issued by your employer, and you want to be able to use that in a citizen role. So lots of issues around permissible use, lots of issues around liability. What's the liability model? Certainly the business intent of using that credential and a lot of the rules that you signed up to, certainly signing away most of your privacy rules to get your business credential, that all opens up now because you're using that credential for a non-business purpose. So lots of good meaty issues there that we're going to look at. If you look at TSCP, it is a membership organization, and what I've listed here are all of the members. And all of our members have signed letters of commitment to participate in the in the various use case pilots that we're going to run and be part of the working groups, the legal and the privacy working groups and the technical privacy, or the technical working groups. And each of the members will and can play various roles. For example, if you're a Lockheed Martin, you can play the role of an identity provider, issuing credentials to its employees, and you can play the role of the rallying party because you may have the supplier portal that, you know, a Northrop or a supplier will be using their credentials to log into. We have a mix, again, of technology provider members, trust framework provider members, attribute exchanges, and relying parties and identity providers. So our plan here, unlike some of the pilots, we want to bring in as many different technology providers as possible. We want to bring in attribute